It's time for Join the Ranks, the prospect-focused podcast of the Dynasty Guru Network, helping Dynasty managers win your leagues one player at a time. So settle in for an hour of conversation and insightful analysis with your hosts, Dynasty Guru managing editors, Drew Klein and Chris Knock.
This is Join the Ranks with Drew Klein. I'm here with Chris Knock, and we're ready to share with you our thoughts on a lot of things, including the shortstop previews. But first, everybody's talking about the weather. Chris, I woke up to 0 degrees, and we're all getting ready for about 2 feet of snow tomorrow afternoon. It's an anticipation that's got us on. How are things on your end of the storm?
0 degrees sounds balmy. I think our high yesterday was like negative. I don't even know. I'm afraid to go outside sort of temperatures. Yeah, we'll get through this. Hopefully everyone's safe. All of our listeners, everyone's safe and warm and cozying up with a nice cup of whatever beverage you prefer.
And I hope your trees are not exploding and your lizards aren't falling out of trees and all the other weird weather things that people are talking about.
All right.
Hey, before we get into it, I've got a few updates from last week to go over. So, Chris and our listeners, you may recall last week we talked about the Carolina Player of the Week and how Google's AI reminded me that it was an award for players in the Carolina League, not players named Carolina.
Which is trash. We should have a Carolina award for people named that. Sorry.
Well, funny you should say that. Because a quick look at Baseball Reference revealed that there was a player named Carolina as recently as 2024. Racial on Carolina is from Curacao, a Caribbean island in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Played at Monroe Community College in Rochester, New York. Then he transferred to Mars Hill College, now University in North Carolina. And then in 2017, played 1 year for the White Sands Pupfish in the Pecos Independent League, then had a 5-year career in the Dutch Major League. Chris, one of his career highlights was in July 22 at the Honkbal Week Haarlem Baseball Week, which, as you know, Haarlem is a city outside of Amsterdam in the Northwest Netherlands.
Obviously.
And in the game against the U.S. Collegiate National Team, he went 1 for 4 with 1 RBI as Curacao defeated the U.S. Collegiate National Team that featured Wyatt Langford, Dylan Cruz, Jacob Wilson, Kyle Teal, and Rhett Lauder, among other names, who were prospects we still talk about. So I'm going to sum up. And as you wisely foreshadowed, until further notice, Racial on Carolina, you are the reigning Join the Ranks player named Carolina of the week.
Good for him. Yeah. Should try and tweet him or whatever.
Well, he's got a Facebook page, which I hope I'm not doxing him or anything, but I couldn't get to it. So we'll keep trying.
Yeah, good for him.
We'll let him know. And then more relevant, since we recorded our outfield episode last week, Lou Bob went to the Mets and Bellinger stayed with the Yankees. And I'm going to ask you your feeling about Luis Robert Jr. in a second. But as I wrote in the article, and I know not all listeners read all our articles, but good move for Bellinger. In fact, I think it's the only move that Cody Bellinger could have made that holds his fantasy value, because his swing is made for Yankee Stadium, incredibly so. I mean, any left-hander is going to like that right field, but it's what he does is he pulls fly balls to right field. And anywhere else that he would have gone, I think his fantasy value would have dipped. So, good for him. Personally, he's also in a good lineup. There's going to be RBI possibilities, run scoring possibilities, et cetera. But if you're a fantasy manager and you've rostered Bellinger, I think you lucked out with that one. And then, Chris, I saw you made a comment that you're still in on Luis Robert. You may have been during the actual podcast. How do you feel about his move?
Oh, I like it. I mean, if you look at, I've talked enough about rumors circulating the last couple of years about Lou Bob maybe not having one of those all-out effort type personalities when his team isn't up to whatever standards he may hold them to. So I think, whether right or wrong, no judgment on that. I think there is probably some water to it. And moving to a team like the Mets, obviously they are trying to win, or at least spending like they're trying to win. So I think that's good. City field isn't exactly a hitter's haven. I don't have those stats pulled up, but the Mets, remember Juan Soto and his 30 stolen bases last year? I did pull up, the Mets stole 147 bases as a team last year, compared to the White Sox's 85, so almost twice as many. I think he'll have green lights. I think, if he had 30 stolen bases last year, that number will at least be similar, right? And he wasn't a perfect 35 or whatever for 35 on the base paths, but I think he'll probably 40 stolen bases is probably within reach. I'm excited to see a theoretically fully motivated Luis Robert in a better team situation with the Mets here. I think it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of chatter about him on the social media as well. I know I had posted something on Blue Sky, put up a skeet, and got some interesting engagement on that from people who are either tired of him and glad to see him leave Chicago, and others who are predicting the fresh start in the new place. So I hope he does. When he's on, he's an exciting player, and I love exciting players. And but it'll be a wait and see. It would be nerve-wracking if I were a fantasy manager who rostered him and was kind of counting on him to do that again. He'd be a great piece to have. But if he's your centerpiece, high risk, high reward, right?
Yeah. Health, I think, is still the biggest thing. And obviously switching teams doesn't necessarily make him healthier.
Yep.
Especially with the mojo around the Mets. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. Good. I did it again.
No. Well, just the other move I wanted to talk about was, again, when you commented on in our Discord about Chet Williams making the move to the Brewers, and you were, I forget the exact phrase, but yeah, if he's a shortstop, and meh, if he's a outfielder, and either could be true. You want to expand on that a little bit, which kind of pulls us into the shortstop, which is a tough.
Yeah. It was a well-timed trade for our purposes. Yeah. So Jet Williams, I think I said, I say it's yay KE instead of MKE if he sticks in the outfield. I'm sorry, if he sticks on the infield, pardon me, and a meh KE if he moves to the outfield kind of move. Jet Williams, we'll just jump in, I guess. He's always been known as being a speedster, potential for pop, good hit tool, and can play all over the middle of the diamond, which is a positive. Those are mostly positives across the board. He lost a year due to injury, came back last year, had an almost full season, and was pretty darn successful. I do not have his numbers pulled up, sorry. But I could probably easily do that as I'm talking. The Brewers have a decent amount of depth in the outfield. And so I think where I was coming from with that is a very top level assessment in that because of all the competition in their outfield, if he can't stay on the dirt, he's going to have to fight for a lot of similar type players to him, right? I almost said Colton Cowser, obviously. That Sal Frelick is who I was thinking of. I see a lot of similarities between those two from an offensive output standpoint. But I think the intention is that the Brewers probably traded for him, targeted him to play middle infield, whether that's taking over at shortstop for Joey Ortiz, as Brandon Ring pointed out, or taking over at second base for Bryce Terang, and moving Terang to shortstop to take over for Joey Ortiz. I think that would be the best case outcome for Jet Williams to maximize his fantasy output, keeping him on the dirt and just letting that strong stolen base hit tool and hope for some pop play out.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the numbers from last year, and he spent most of the year at Double-A and 400 plus plate appearances. 281, 390, 477. He had 151 plate appearances in AAA and only hit 209. So probably still some adjustment that needs to go on, but he's had success in adjusting and doing well at different levels. So it'll be an interesting one to watch. So okay.
And then his hit tool might, I've seen some people saying that hit tool might be overrated, and you just highlighted probably the source of some of that. I will say that he missed the 100 plus games in 2024. I think it was. Right around 100 games of 2024. I think it was ACL now that I'm thinking out loud. But, so he was coming back from injury and played the dang near the full season. So a little bit of fade near the end of the year at a tougher level. I take that into account.
Okay. Yeah, we did jump around a little bit on our agenda. I just kind of wanted to tie that into our current events, and it did kind of bridge from last year. But real quick on the business, we're going to get onto the rankings now. And as always, we are releasing our positional rankings a week at a time at the Dynasty Guru, especially on the website. We'll have the 2 articles a day coming out starting on Monday. But as just pointed out last week, a number of people have already seen the rankings, and there are discordants. Chris, can you just remind the listeners who they are and how somebody can be part of that crowd?
Our discordants, they are awesome and growing, and it is phenomenal to see all the action right now in there. So two donation levels for our website that keep us afloat as a website and as a guru team. And that's $15 donation will get you just the ranks and all of that digital goodness. The $20 donation gets you the ranks as well, early access to everything we've released on the spreadsheet so far, along with access to the Discord. And that's where you get not just obviously the ranks, but the nuances, and we can explain, I prefer Cam. I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but a recent conversation, Schlitter versus Sheehan, and we went in, a couple of us were chiming in as to our perspectives on those two, who are relatively close in our rankings. I think right next to each other in our starting pitcher rankings. Those are on the spreadsheet. But maybe some nuance as to which one you like, depending on certain aspects. I'm trying to tease it a lot, even though that. The $20 donation, in my estimation, well worth the cup of coffee cost above our Discord or just our rank tier donation. So $20 that gets you access to the Discord to about this time next year, at least through the first of next year.
All right, thank you. And then also our last announcement is that I'll call it the beta version of our YouTube presentation of this podcast is online. It's a static presentation. We're going to spare you from watching 2 men who just rolled out of bed, sucking down coffee while shouting at the clouds. And more pertinent, I'm a few steps away from video editing, but it will have the prospect tiers and the Dyna rankings on the screen while we're talking about them. It's on the Dynasty Guru channel. I'll put a link in the notes so you can just look for the Dynasty Guru channel. And right now there's one, so it'll be easy to pick. I will get the shortstop one up probably by Monday. Then we'll see how it goes and hopefully continue it. If you do look at it, let me know what you think. Be gentle if you look at the first one. My screens are kind of off-centered and I didn't want to go back and all right, I'm whining. Anyhow, just want to add another way. So if you're somebody who may be able to have a screen up while you're listening and you just kind of want to see the names to refresh yourself who we're talking about while we're talking about them, might be another way to experience the podcast we're putting out. So we'll see how that goes, but it's there. All right, let's get into our rankings. Quick reminder, we're looking at basically what are the 3-year impact on the Dynasty rankings. When we look at the prospects, sometimes a little bit more than that. Somebody may not make an impact at the major league level in 3 years, but it doesn't mean we don't rank them. So the shortstop rankings are coming out this week. We're ready to go. Like I said, there's a lot of people to rank, a lot of variance in the rankings. Once again, we're going to start by talking about the prospects, and we rank those in tiers. I'm going to read tier 1. For our shortstop rankings, we have 4 players in tier 1. They are Walker Jenkins. Whoops, that's an outfielder. He is so good. We are going to rank Walker Jenkins at every position possible. No, actually, They are the 6 shortstops in Tier 1, are Connor Griffin, Kevin McGonigal, Leo DeVries, J.J. Weatherholt, Jesus Made, and Sebastian Walcott. Again, pretty consistent rankings with all of our rankers at TDG. Pretty solid 6. Chris, what do you make of it, and who's your must-have?
Well, you know me and Connor Griffin. I'm stumbling here, but I personally would say Connor Griffin should be in a tier of his own. Okay. He is the universal number 1 prospect. Well, maybe not quite universal, but I don't know if there's much of a debate when ranks as far as him over the safer Kevin McGonigal. You have that debate, and I think it's well played out and don't need to really go into it too much. But I guess maybe the reason he's not in a separate tier by himself, as I'm thinking out loud, is that McGonigal is more likely, in my opinion, to make the team earlier than Griffin, the major league team. And McGonigal, of course, is considered a safer player. I was higher than Made than the rest of the squad and Walcott. We're talking, I had Made at 3 versus 5 and Walcott at 4 versus 6. I think, both of those players could be third basemen eventually in short order once they make the major leagues. But I think their upside is higher than both DeVries and Weatherholt. And, well, you know me, I'm a sucker in that regard. So not quite as floor oriented, but when you're talking about, a 25-25 type out of Made, or I'm talking absolute ceilings here, like a 40 home run bat like Sebastian Walcott, I really, really would lean those ways. So I had Griffin, McGonigal, Made, Walcott, and then DeVries as my top 5, Weatherholt at 6. But no real arguments from me.
Yeah, I had Griffin number 1, McGonigal 2, and then Weatherholt up at 3. And the proximity does play there, as well as I love the hit tool. And then Walcott, DeVries, and Made. It's so tight. Like, I don't argue with anything you said. I think Walcott had just the power and put him a little bit higher. But so you brought up a really interesting point when we were talking about the outfielders, that in that group, you wouldn't be afraid to trade down for a couple pieces out of the tier 1. I'm going to assume that Connor Griffin, you would need to be blown away. I'm not going to say untouchable, but of the other 5, anybody in there that you would say you could probably trade down to tier 2 or lower and get a couple pieces back, and you'd be happy with that?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say out of tier 1, I would be most likely to move DeVries or Weatherholt. Strangely enough, my 2 lower of all of that tier. First off, DeVries very likely is going to be a second baseman. Maybe that bumps some value. That's not part of my equation here. But I think from what's been reported for his 90 percentile exit velocity, that power might not be quite as what we would think based on his frame. Obviously, that can change as he ages. He's only 21 or whatever. So somewhat concerned about the power output overall. I think DeVries is going to be more of a do everything really well as opposed to be completely outstanding in one or more categories. So I think there's still some name value. Not saying he's like bottoming out by any means, but if I was to move anyone, it would probably be Weatherholt and DeVries, who I think have the lower ceilings, but still have that high trade value associated with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's actually only 19.
Oh, shoot.
Years old. Yeah, he's younger than you thought.
Needing more coffee.
Yeah. I would have said DeVries out of that group. And Weatherholt is, I liked him coming out of the FYPD. I had him, overranked there in hindsight. So I'd have that emotional tie, like, oh, he's my guy. But he probably is at a sell high opportunity right now because there's just a lot of chatter about him coming out at second base, out of spring training, with the Cardinals. And he could be anywhere. It could be third base, could be shortstop there. Yeah. Influx there. But making the squad is a realistic possibility there. And I think that, as we've said before, when a prospect is about to break in, is oftentimes a high point in terms of their fantasy trade value. So he'd be the one I'd be looking for, but not for the reasons that we talked about with the outfielders.
Correct. These are good fantasy assets. Wherever they play on the dirt, I think you're going to have rosterable players for a while out of all of them.
Yep. And let's jump down to tier 2, where we had as the group Luis Pena, Colt Emerson, Aiden Miller, Emil Morales, Bryce Rayner, and Kalen Culpepper. Interesting tier, and this is where we start to get a lot more, I think, diversity of opinion with not so much ourselves right now, but with the group. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Emil Morales. The group was higher on him than I was, and you and I both had him in the mid-teens, and the group had him at about 10. This can happen to a few players we're talking about today. So, to our colleagues, we're not dissing you. We're just saying, hey, you're seeing things we aren't seeing. And I'm still high on him. I'm not low on him. He's part of it is he's 18 years old. He'll be 19 this year. So, and I know we just talked about DeVries being 19. It's not totally ageist about it, but there's going to be a long, slow burn. His batting averages are very high. His on base is very high. He did really well last year in the time he spent in single A. I'm not 26% strikeout rate last year. Not too worried about that. I think he's a good player, but I just like players in that tier better than I like him. Top 20 is not bad. Top 15 is not bad, but I don't see him as a top 10 prospect just yet. And I think he's definitely got the potential to be there. What are your thoughts on him, and what do you recall other people saying about him in the debates that they like better than we do?
Well, first off, I came into our pod today saying to myself, I am not going to talk about anyone I wrote up in my article. So I touched on Morales in my article, in my blurbs. So I will, I'm only talking about him because you brought him up, and that's okay. The next thing I want to call out is that, you're not being ageist comparing, Morales as a 19-year-old to DeVries as a 19-year-old, but one was in AA and one was in low A. So there is a difference in those assignments quite a bit. So it's not being ageist; it's more just taking the full picture in. So I do want to agree with you on that. And for me, Morales, it's also a long path because he's a Dodger. They're gonna trade. They're gonna make moves. They're gonna sign free agents, and they're gonna develop the hell out of their prospects. But it's going to be hard for those prospects to break through on their major league roster as quick as we want. I've talked about this ad nauseum. So the other thing, the biggest thing for me for Morales is, he's toolsy. I really like that. We know this. I'm trying to be more aware and appreciative of contact concerns, especially someone in low A who has a 72% contact rate after a 61% in the complex. There's a lot of swing and miss in that bat, and that's where I get concerned. Not saying it's not going to be able to be overcome, but that makes a path longer in and of itself, and there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. So I think there might be some good stats glossing that help hide the fact that there's some concern underneath, and that's where I faded Morales a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said right there. The next name, same situation. We're lower than the group. This has been the talk of the offseason in some regards is, what do you do with Ethan Holiday? I don't know how much of his brother's slow start is rubbing off on how we look at him. Again, just for the listeners, the group had him at 15th overall, and nestled at the high end of tier 2. I had him down at 23rd. You had him in the low 20s. I'm a kind of I need to see it now before I go too overboard with it. Not a lot of data to go on. So we've got a lot of high school reports that there are concerns about his swing. He only had 84 plate appearances in the minors last year. In that 84, had a 16% swing and strike rate, 60% contact rate. So both those numbers are concerning. But somebody out of high school playing single A, I'm the first to say I don't look very hard at that data. In their draft year when they get a taste of single A ball, I don't get too excited when it's good. I don't get too down when it's low. Like I think JJ Weatherholt didn't do well, and I think he's doing fine now. So, thoughts are, I really think with Ethan Holiday, we're throwing a dart at the wall and going to see where it comes out. It's just so hard to project. Is he getting a name boost? Are you and I rubbing, like overly cautious because of his brother, because of Colorado? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think as is much in life, it's all of the above, right? I mean, it was a relatively throwing a high school draftee into low A, their draft year. It can burn an org, or it can burn a perception, I should say. You often don't see those high school players get any sort of, they keep them on the complex and just working on instructs sort of thing, typically. And then they become that mystery box. Where would we feel if Ethan Holiday didn't strike out 40% of the time in low A in his 18 games? Probably we'd think higher of him, right? And so Condon, if you rewind a little bit further, they challenged him and put him at high A. And everyone was scared off with him a little bit last year. He ended up, or I should say entering last year then. He ended up having a reasonably solid year. He's not quite the top prospect we thought he would be. He settled somewhere in between the pre-draft hype and the pre-25 low. I kind of see the same thing for Holiday. He's obviously got bloodlines here for days. His older brother always said that Ethan was the better, or the going to be the better baseball player. So, that could be brotherly love. There could be some accuracy in that too. So he's still a first round FYPD guy. He's not likely a shortstop. So keep that in mind. But the guy's he looks like a physical beast. He's worth a gamble and seeing what happens here. But I just don't think he's what we thought what we were hoping for this time last year.
Mm-hmm. Now, who in this group do you want to talk about? Anybody you want to highlight or ask about?
In the second tier, I was looking at my list. I think we've covered most. I mean, Kalen Culpepper. Nope, he's someone I wrote about, so I won't talk about him. Read my articles. No, he's proximal, and I think he's kind of underrated right now. I'll just leave it at that. Bryce Rayner has a lot of hype, and I think it's well deserved. I was one ahead. You had him a couple higher than the group too. Again, I mean, I'm going to say this all day with our shortstop prospects is that he might not stay at shortstop. He's a big guy. I think the comps to Corey Seager are probably well placed in both the hit tool and power potential. And We'll see how he comes back off of that shoulder injury. It doesn't seem to be a harbinger of doom, shoulder injuries in positional players, but he looked really good for that first 2 months and could be in our top prospect overall conversation if he is able to maintain that with a healthy full season here.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I could see long-term McGonigal sticking at short and Rayner at third, or vice versa, or if Cole Keith settles in at third, one of them at second, one of them at short. So don't know exactly where they're going to end up, but yeah, I love what he did before he got hurt. Okay. I don't. You should have called me on it, Chris. I jumped to tier 3 when I brought in Holiday. I don't know why I skipped past that dark line, so I apologize for that.
That's all right.
So I'll read tier 3, and then we've already talked about one of them, of course. But our tier 3 at the TDG ranking for the prospect shortstops is JoJo Parker, Eli Willits, Ethan Holiday, Jet Williams, Caleb Bonemer, George Lombard Jr., Feldine Celestin, Ava Arquette, Arun Nimala, Franklin Arias, Juan Sanchez, Josuar Gonzalez, and Steele Hall. A large tier, a very interesting tier. I like it. And I'll let you go first. Who do you want to throw out from that group to talk about?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about Ava Arquette a little bit more. I know we have talked about him, and it's probably nothing new that I'm gonna add. But I had him 16th overall. A few nudges ahead of where we had him as a group at 20, but I still have him neck and neck, but one spot ahead of JoJo Parker, which that is why I'm just highlighting him. Arquette, again, talking about debut samples. He's known as a power bat, right? He hit 19 home runs his junior year at Oregon State after transferring there, and that's Pac-10. I realize not quite the SEC, but everyone was expecting a big, strong future third baseman coming out there, and he hit 1 home run. He didn't strike out a lot. That's great. He took a good amount of walks. That's great. All those other metrics, everything looked good. Solid contact percentage. His triple slash wasn't awesome, but again, that's fine. All I'm saying here basically is I wouldn't give up. If you were high on Arquette going into the draft cycle, I wouldn't be too scared off by his debut and lack of home runs. Long season for these guys, and so he was challenged at high A also, which is a reasonably aggressive. Hopefully he'll hit double A, maybe even start there. That'd be really cool. I like challenge. I would like to have the quote unquote most complete college bat last draft challenge there, but if he doesn't, hopefully he'll end up at high A or even triple A by the end of the year. I know some people think his path might be shorter, but I wouldn't anticipate that, but that's still pretty quick for a college bat. Ava Arquette, I still have him above some of those other FYPD shortstops.
And similar to what you just said about what Colorado did with Condon, is that Miami started him in high A last year. So he was 21 years old. From age to level, it was good, but he skipped the single A level, as a new professional. So yeah, I had him a little lower, but in that tier. I don't agree. I've got him behind Willits. I also have him one level above Parker. Always struggle with the FIPD and where do you plug him in, and some people a lot about, some people a little, and so it's not their fault. I don't know that much about them, but I think he's kind of grouped right in terms of where we have him overall right now. A few names in here where there is a discrepancy between where you and I had them. I'm going to start with Franklin Arias in the Red Sox system. And he is, I guess depends whether you count Marcelo Meyer or not, but a lot of lists call him the Red Sox #1 prospect right now, that being Arias, who at 19-year-old was in Double A for the very end of the season last year, spent most of the year in high A. One of those all-around ball players. He doesn't strike out much, Doesn't walk a whole lot either, but got some good bat skills. 5'11", 170, so I don't know how much he's going to go in. I'm talking myself out of him as I talk to him. But he's just a good ball player, Chris. But I think he's going to continue to put up. The contact rates are encouraging to me. His swinging strike rate last year across all levels in the minors was 5.3%. That's incredibly low. Contact rate, overall contact rate, 89%. That's in and out of zone. And that's, he didn't play 3 levels, single A, high A, and double A. So when I see a player with that level of contact skill moving across that many levels, I take notice. And I think he's on a fast track. So we're not doing a proximity rating, but it matters. But we are looking at who's going to make a fantasy impact. And then he's going to be in a lineup with all those young guns. So there's going to be players to drive in or players driving him in. The counting stats are going to be there from the run and RBI point of view. I don't think the Red Sox are ever going to be a stolen base team. So, he had 12 last year. I wouldn't draft him or trade for him for the purpose of stolen bases. But I'm high on him. I know the Sox are. I know other rankers are. The group had him at 22. I had him as high as 12. You had him below that. So is it just you like everybody else better, or do you see something that gives you concern?
Yeah, I think he falls into the bucket of hesitant because of fantasy impact. Yep, he can put the bat on the ball really well. And with McGonigal, we can see that he is able to put the barrel on the ball really well, and he's got some exit velocities that are really impressive for being a hit tool first guy. I don't have exit velocities for Franklin Arias, but I do see his slug is often a OBP worthy level, in the upper 300s. His ISOs are in the 100s roughly, right? And sometimes lower 100s, which is not good. So he's not even getting many extra base hits is what that comes down to me. I just see him more of a slap guy, solid hitter, Arias type, stolen bases, exactly as you said. He I was just at it, but I've been scrolling aimlessly as I was talking, so I'm losing my. He was 12 stolen bases out of 21. So he got caught 9 times all of last year. He doesn't have the kind of wheels that you would like to see out of a slap hitter, singles kind of merchant. So all in all, he might be a very good second base. Real life type guy is what I'm seeing here. I'm not looking at his defense at all, but I'm just avoiding him for fantasy purposes at shortstop, especially. To me, it's just, he could be a very good prospect for real life, but just fantasy purposes, I'm trying to sell.
Okay. And on the other side of the coin is Arun Namala of the Toronto system, where the group had him at 21, you had him at 18. I had him down at 32. The batting averages and the ball to bat skills scare me off with him. He doesn't have terrible contact rates, but I don't know if the power you get from him, which is good, not great, in my opinion, is going to outweigh how he's going to hurt you in terms of the other categories. But I've heard you mention him before. Then you've always been a little bit higher on him than I am. What do you see in Namala that you like?
Yeah, I think he's got room to be impact fantasy wise if he continues to develop. I mean, I wouldn't say having him. Where do I have him? I have him at 18. You're starting to get into the questionable realm and variance here. So I'm not like super high on Namala. Last year wasn't terrible at high A. He did strike out only 21% of the time, but as you said, his contact rate is hovering that yellow zone. So people might be out because of that swing and miss that he had. If you remember, also he was a cricket player, so he's got to really work on this screen, on his swing. Pardon me. Focus on just improving the bat to ball. It is a risk, not trying to downplay it. But I think overall, he with the Toronto development, with what they've been able to do, I think they're consistently underrated for how well they're bringing up prospects, bringing players through their system. He's got all around 5 category potential, and so, or at least 4 counting stat potentials. I don't know why I'm saying 4, but home runs, RBIs, runs, and so on. Yeah, that's right. So that's what I like about him. I think it's there. I think he's worth keeping an eye on. Obviously based on my ranking, but I would take Namala in a heartbeat over Franklin Arias. Just because even if he's a riskier play, the potential for actually getting stats in a fantasy world, that's what I like.
Okay. Anybody else in this tier that you want to talk about?
I don't have the tiers highlighted.
Parker, Willett, Holiday, Williams, Bonner, Lombard, Celston, Arquette, Namala, Arias, Sanchez, Gonzalez, Hall.
Celston, I think we were, last time we talked near the end of last year, we were talking how we were fading him. I think that just continues. I have this, I don't know how fair it is, but with Mariners prospects, it seems to me that hype always often outpaces production. And so I think Celestin's kind of fallen into that bucket again. Speaking of Toronto prospects, Namala to Juan Sanchez, that's another guy who I really like. I think if he's a free agent, now's your time to get him. I would get him early in the FYPD personally, if that's available in your league. If he is rostered by a teammate, that teammate probably has caught on to what Sanchez did last year. I'm pulling him up as I'm talking. So you might not be able to get him quite at cheaply yet. He wasn't just in the DSL. So it'll be exciting to see what happens when he comes over to the stateside. But he had double-digit walk rate, sub 20% strikeout rate, so that's good. 8 home runs in 56 games. So another Blue Jay, Juan Sanchez, I think he could be popping up once he comes stateside and a lot more people get eyeballs on him.
All right, I love it. Then we'll jump down to the next tier, which is our tier 4. We've got Carson Williams, Jordan Lawler, Marcelo Meyer, Cooper Pratt, Elian Pena, Brandon Winokur, Gavin Fine, Johnny Lovell, Dax Kilby, Johnry Vargas, Angel Rangel Janeo, Tyson Lewis, and Wahiwa Aloy. Interesting names. This is like 26 to 38 on our prospect list. I'm not overwhelmed by them. The Jordan Lawler story we've talked about a lot, and who knows what Arizona's doing with him and where he's going to end up, or if he's always just going to be I hate to say 4A player. I'll just say it. So I didn't really highlight any names here. I don't know if you want to talk about Marcelo Meyer now or when we talk about the overall ranks, because he's about two or three at-bats away from graduating from the prospect list. But that was the only name I found fairly interesting here, probably because you and I were much higher than the group on him, and it may have been that somebody left him off the list because they were ranking him in the other list. But what do you think of this group in general, or anybody specifically?
Yeah, the 3 at the top that all have MLB experience are all 3 that I actually talk about in my article, but loosely, yeah, there's enough question marks, but they're in the major leagues, or at least going to be up there again, probably early in the season if they're not going to be on the opening day rosters. They all have enough question marks, and we've talked pretty extensively about them in the past. I guess since you asked about Marcelo, I think he's another one that might be primed to be a better real life player than fantasy impactful. But he's in the major leagues already. And so that's where I think it's reasonable to target him if you so want, more so than his org mate Arias. It seems like the Red Sox are ready to give him third base, or at least a split over there. I don't follow them super closely, but obviously after Bregman walked, they haven't seemingly traded for any other third baseman. So I think that's probably where Meyer might end up being. You go. Yeah, you're closer to that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's where they're slotting him in right now. However, I don't know how many games you count on Trevor Story to cover at shortstop over the course of the season, either from injury or days of rest. So I think Meyer was likely to get enough playing time there to keep eligibility in most fantasy leagues. But I think he's going to be primarily a third baseman is what it's looking like right now. And I think most of the free agents are off the board. You hear rumors about, boy, wouldn't it be great to see Eugenio Suarez hitting at the wall, but I don't think they're going to give him the contract it would take to get him. So I would predict Meyer at third base, but the shortstop eligibility is definitely in play for a couple of years at least, I think.
And that really helps value too, is having multi-positions. So yeah, I think as much as I like Carson Williams and obviously have him much higher ranked than the group, if I was competing and had a win now and needed to choose one of these to fill an active roster, which makes it debatable if you're really competing, but I would probably go with Meyer, just consistent playing time and consistent batting average, I guess, more so than Carson.
All right. Anybody else? Are you ready to jump into our sneaky deeps?
We can keep going or move along.
All right. So quick recap of last year in the sneaky deeps. I brought forth Deiber De Los Santos from Minnesota, who followed up with a 2025 in Complex as an 18-year-old, and he hit 167 with 4 home runs and 15 stolen bases. That was an 88 WRC plus. Chris, you brought Boston Barrow from the Mets, high A as a 20-year-old last year. He hit 224 with 4 home runs and 28 stolen bases, an 84 WRC plus. Also important to note that Fangraphs does list 10 players in the minors and college with the first name Boston. So I don't think Boston Barrow was even a Boston of the Week award winner. Yeah, sorry. Happy to give you the win on this one, but I think objectively that makes us 1 for 4 on sneaky deeps between the two positions. Feel free to argue. That said, I'll let you go first. Who's your sneaky deep shortstop?
Well, I had 2 names highlighted as per my usual. I can't ever decide. The first one is not as sneaky, especially after this recent trade. I did want to talk about him before the trade, but Devin Fitzgerald, now of the Washington Nationals, I personally think he might end up being the most valuable piece out of the return the Nationals got for Gore. That comes as a former or recovering Rosario fan. He was drafted in 24, and they didn't play him in his draft year, the Rangers. He debuted last year for the Rangers at Complex, just tore it up. They promoted him to low A, and he also performed admirably there. He's a switch-hitting shortstop, may not stay at short, one of those, surprise, surprise. He's just kind of a do-everything type. He could be, I think, a notch above a Franklin Arias if sticking at second base, with a little bit more pop, a little bit more stolen bases, and if he has positional flexibility, if they do move him all over the infield, which he's capable of playing, I think he'll have a lot of depth and value as a middle infielder here. Maybe that's me also saying that I didn't like the return for Gore by talking about a potential utility player that should be rosterable. Saying that out loud makes me really put it in that perspective. But Yeah, I think Devin Fitzgerald was on his way to becoming much more fantasy known before he got hurt last year. And that, sorry, I might have glossed over that. He ended up, I believe, injuring his shoulder sometime early summer and basically missed the rest of the year. And he was getting some notoriety. And I think after he got hurt and obviously just stopped playing and getting any sort of playing time, he kind of fell off radars. So that's where he was going to be one of my sneakier deep guys, but not my sneakiest of sneaky. The sneakier of them was my 44th ranked shortstop prospect, and that's Romelli Espinoza of the Philadelphia Phillies.
All right.
He was another Dominican Summer League bat. If you pull up any videos of him, you're automatically, well, I shouldn't say automatically, you're likely going to see some Ellie De La Cruz comp. He is tall. He is lanky, listed at 6'4". From whatever clips I saw, it's impossible to tell. He could be 7 feet tall at this point. I don't know, but he is a string bean. He didn't walk a lot, but again, it was DSL type numbers. He only had 2 home runs, but 5 triples, 6 doubles in 40 games. So he didn't play a lot in the DSL. I'm excited to see him in complex. I could see him shooting up. He seems like he's a burner. He 12 stolen bases and was caught 4 times. So the triples are what make me think that more so than those steals. So he's deep. I'm not thinking this guy's going to be Ellie De La Cruz, but my fingers are crossed, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the complex in stateside ball this year. That is Romelli Espinoza, Philadelphia Phillies.
Excellent. I'm going to bring Wilder Dallas to the table, Dalis. He plays for Colorado by way of Venezuela. Last year, he was in complex and single A as an 18-year-old. And across the 2 levels, he posted a 308, 399, 468 slash line with 6 home runs, 64 RBIs, 131 WRC plus. What the scouts note that I could find is his high hard hit rate. He had 19 doubles and 5 triples. 6 foot tall, probably add a couple inches and a few pounds. I've seen some video of him. He's got a really nice level swing. His strikeout rate's under 20%, walk rate over 10%. The year before, he had a really high ground ball rate in the DSL. Last year, he brought that down to 41%, which is still high-ish, but is over 60 in the DSL stats from the year before. And its fly ball rate went from 10% to 37%. So the coaching has really got him working on elevating the swing and getting the hard hit rate to turn into hard hit fly balls. So the power is going to continue to grow for Dalis. He's a switch hitter. I don't know splits available yet, so I don't know if he'll stay there, whether he's better lefty or righty, or whether that'll help against any platoon possibilities. He has played as much third base as short, so position switch may be in order. But either way, I think he's showing early signs of being a potential hard-hitting infielder. So Wilder Dalis of Colorado is my sneaky deep. And the backup I had, just in case you took him, who I don't feel as strongly about, but John Gill or Heel, Gil, plays for Atlanta, a 19-year-old from the DR, Dominican Republic. Last year, he was between rookie and single A. Spent the year in single A with, the year before, rookie and single A. Last year, single A with just 6 in double A. Last year, he had 7 home runs, 54 stolen bases, walks as much as he strikes out, good contact skills, and multi-position eligibility. So, again, my backup was John Heel, but the Wilder Dalis is the sneaky deep that I'm bringing. So let's move on to our Dynasty rankings. The TDG top 10 for shortstops was Bobby Witt Jr., Ellie De La Cruz, Gunnar Henderson, Francisco Lindor, Connor Griffin, Trey Turner, Zach Neto, CJ Abrams, Kevin McGonigal, and Corey Seager. In the top 10, we have 3 debuts, Griffin, Neto, and McGonigal. And leaving the top 10 are Mookie Betts, Willie Adames, and O'Neill Cruz. O'Neill because of the position switch, of course. Betts is down at 12, and Adames is down to 18. Impressions of the top 10. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to argue with Witt, De La Cruz, and Henderson. Lindor, Griffin, and Turner, that's two different ways to build your team right there, I think. And so it could be debatable. You and I both had Griffin at 4, which isn't unrealistic, I don't think. And would definitely recommend if you are building a team and not looking to compete immediately for whatever reason, going Griffin before either Lindor or Turner. I like Neto. I had him at 5 behind Griffin. I don't know why he gets somewhat ignored. I mean, he had almost a 30-30 season, it seems like, last year, after almost having a 30-30 season the year before. Last year, he was 26-26 and missed the first month. He has some swing and miss, no doubt about it. But, he gets those counting stats, and I guess maybe that's why I'm so high on him versus others. But, Neto, I have Abrams up a little bit higher then, and that's when I go. So I go a lot more youth forward. Then I have Lindor ahead of McGonigal. Lindor over McGonigal. I probably would do that almost across the board. Just thinking of my conversation that I was just having with myself about Griffin over Lindor. And that's just McGonigal. And we had a good debate about this in our shortstop debate for the consensus ranking. Is will McGonigal translate into being fantasy relevant? I think so, because of some of those exit velocities we see. He's got the bat to ball, but like I said, he's got the barrel to the ball skill. And that is the key where he's able to unlock those powers, or unlock the game power, I should say. Unlock the power sounds like I'm watching too much He-Man or something. But that's kind of, what some people see here, and I get it with McGonigal. I was trying to think of I don't think this is fair, but with McGonigal, I see a lot in Ryan Sandberg. Not really this big. Sandberg was a bigger guy than McGonigal is, but he wasn't like this hulk of a player back in the 80s and early 90s. He hit 40 home runs, and in whatever year that was, 1990 or something like that, that's remarkable. I don't foresee that as an outcome for McGonigal, but maybe people didn't see it with Sandberg either. But like McGonigal is, it's when you're hitting the ball 109 miles an hour, 90% of the time or whatever that was, that's huge. And that's a lot of power there. So I could talk myself, and it sounds like I'm talking myself out of McGonigal behind Lindor even almost. So I might not be right with that exit velocity number. I'm trying to find what I just pulled out. So I don't want to mislead anyone thinking that he has 109 exit velocity. I'm trying to find it. Sorry, you go ahead. Stop me from rambling blindly.
No, I don't remember the exact number, but that was the tone of the conversation in the debates. I did have McGonigal one notch ahead of Lindor in my rankings for that reason. I am changing my thinking. I thought McGonigal will get a slow play and a lot of time in AAA this year, and watching Detroit do nothing with their aside from signing the bargain basement relievers. I think McGonigal's going to get a lot more play in the majors than I had anticipated. I know a lot of people were already thinking that. I'm just late to that thought. So I think and not just because of the impact this year, but looking at the total numbers he put up last year, he's ready, and there's a lot of indication the game's going to translate well to the majors. So I had him higher, and I think that hard hit rate and the bat speed, regardless of the park, is going to going to make a huge difference. With Zach Neto, I think the concern with him, and I like Zach Neto, and he's actually a very fun player to watch play. We do look at OBP, and he doesn't walk. And to me, that's kind of the one stat that I just kind of, of the five, I pull back a little bit on that one, with him. But there's a few guys in this list who don't walk a lot either. But so I don't really argue with your take on him, but when I was looking at the numbers while you were talking, that's the one I look at and go, I think, and I wasn't going to ask this question exactly the way we asked it last week, but, Corey Seager is sitting there at 10. I had him at 11. I think he's the nominee for most likely to fall out of the top 10 next year.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't know if I overlook him or not. I mean, he only played 102 games last year, which accounts for part of the drop off in like the home runs went from 30 to 21. But even the slugging went from 512 to 47, so about 30 points less. He's still putting the ball in play. He's got a high OBP. He does a lot of things very well. But I just feel that the slide is starting for Corey Seager, and I think it's gonna continue. So if I had him, I'd try to get the most out of him this year. Maybe see if I wasn't contending, if there's a contender who wanted to bring him on. But I certainly wouldn't be looking to go out and obtain him in a dynasty league unless I was really weak at the position and wanted to, was in a win now situation and had to sell out for this year's banner. But other than that, I think pretty much agree with everything you had to say about the top 10. I think we got a solid group there.
Yeah, I do want to clarify, thanks to ProspectSavant.com, McGonigal's max was 109. Okay. And I was just getting conflated off the top of my head. His average exit velocity, though, was 90 miles an hour, which is really good for an average exit velocity. Obviously, that doesn't tell as good of a story as your EV90. But those are excellent numbers for a quote unquote hit first guy. So, I just wanted to clarify all of that. Corey Seager, he's another health guy. If he gets 120 games, he's going to get 30 home runs. That's quite valuable. Middle infield is outside of it gets really questionable, the shortstop. Is Trey Turner on his downswing? Is Lindor going to be on his downswing? Where did Henderson's power go? There's a lot of questions here. So it's kind of a Seager. He could be top 10 if he repeats another 30 plus home runs and other people slide. So health is my biggest thing with him. He's got still has a 73 mile an hour swing, which is, I'm comparing it to last year, bat speed was 72. So, his swing isn't slowing down yet, despite some of his injuries. So, yeah, I'm not out on Seager. I've never been a big Seager fan, but, I think he sits around number 10 for a couple more years. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. You touched on a few things that have been talked. A lot of people talking about Gunnar Henderson. And I saw a post recently, somebody pointing out that his first half of 2024 was awesome. And since then it's been pedestrian. I would say it's been a little bit better than pedestrian, but there's a point to be made there. I mean, this will be a very interesting year to see if he can get back to that level, or is he going to slide down? But I'm going to read 11 to 20, our next group of 10, because it really highlights what you just said about the position getting a little weird after that. I mean, listen to the number of prospects we have in this group. Starting at 11, J.J. Weatherholt, then Mookie Betts, Jesus Made, Leo DeVries, Jeremy Pena, Sebastian Walcott, Bo Bichette at 17, Willie Adames, Jacob Williams, and Luis Pena. We talked about Weatherholt, so I don't want to talk the whole thing again. I thought I'd be high on him at 12, but the group consensus is at 11. So clearly there's some people that had him in the top 10, which I think says something about the depth of the position, or the depth of the top level of this position. It's kind of weird. Like, it's got a really strong middle. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those names just mentioned are prospects. Half of the 11 to 20. I think that's a lot for a position like shortstop.
Yeah, I think it talks about, as we're saying, strong prospect crop. We liked that group, right? Yep. And not as strong of a actual major league crop, fantasy purposes. So not surprising. And shoot, a lot of those guys could be in the top 10 easily next year. Because would we be surprised if we saw Weatherholt getting, playing the majority of the year, DeVries playing the majority of the year, Walcott getting a couple months in, even Made could get a couple months in, who knows, So
no, none of that would surprise me. And looking at the top 10, I like Abrams, but I wouldn't be surprised if he regressed even further. I hope he doesn't, but yeah, I can see some names that they could replace there going, the next year or year and a half.
Yep.
Easily.
Yep.
I want to spend a few minutes comparing somebody from this group to actually somebody in our next group. And that's, we had Jacob Wilson at 19. And the group had Geraldo Perdomo at 24. I had Perdomo at 14, Wilson at 20. You had Perdomo at 19, Wilson at 25. So both lower, but both a 6-player gap. And, the group had Wilson 5 slots higher than Perdomo. Looking at the year that Perdomo put up last year, I mean, it just wasn't good. It was one of the top 3 years by any shortstop. Like, I don't even know if 14 is too low. He had 20 home runs, 27 stolen bases. There's your 2020, 290, a 389 OBP, and that's with a 303 BABIP. So it wasn't BABIP lucky that boosted everything up. Slugging average 462. I don't see anything behind the scenes that show that it was a fluke year. His swinging strike rate for the second year in a row was 4%. Incredibly low. I mean, that's Luis Arraez type of numbers, but with power. You put that stat line up and said, hey, this is Mookie Betts on a pretty good year, you'd believe it. You put that stat line against anybody in the top 10 and say, hey, this is the year that they put this player put up, and people would say, yeah. Are you and I believing enough? And the group isn't. And then Jacob Wilson, and again, I'm not going to badmouth Jacob Wilson, but from a fantasy perspective, he gives you great OBP. He gave you 13 home runs in 500 plate appearances. He gave you 5 stolen bases. A solid major league shortstop who is he's much better on the field than he is on a fantasy sheet. But a lot of fantasy rankers have Wilson above Perdomo. What is it? Like I'm scratching my head over it. And I know I wrote about it. I know we're trying not to just read our articles on the pod, but when I was just writing the riser and faller, I thought this guy's just, not only is he a riser, but it's making me rethink my rankings and look at Weatherholt, Seager, Turner above him going, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid question. And I think there's enough hesitation because Wilson got hurt. Perdomo, this is his first year of actually being, what we actually thought when he was a prospect. For a while, we thought he would be a fantasy impactful player. And it wasn't looking like that. And he got a great contract from the Diamondbacks. And next thing you know, he's kicking out some fantasy worthy stats. I think those are good questions you're asking. Why aren't we higher? You and I were both higher than the majority or the consensus on those 2 players. I take that back. Oh, I was lower on Wilson. But we were higher on Perdomo. I can't help but to compare these 2 with strong hit tools, questionable power, or at least debatable power, to Kevin McGonigal. Do we expect Kevin McGonigal to come up and put out a 20 home run, 27 stolen base, 290 season, batting average season? That would be an amazing outcome for Kevin McGonigal. That's what Perdomo just did. So I think sometimes we get as prospect oriented rankers, we sometimes get excited about what could happen and ignore what did happen and make it, and we get caught up in what could be with these prospects. And really, I think an outcome like Perdomo's is really, even what the projections have for Perdomo, roughly mid-teens home runs and 20 stolen bases. That could be Kevin McGonigal, very likely, and I don't think anyone would bat an eye. Is that worth the number 8 Dino shortstop off the board? Questionable. But I think that's where everyone thinks about Perdomo's true value, is that could be very well his career year. And if you want to pay for that, I'd advise against it for Perdomo. Wilson, he gets that barrel on the ball enough. When he's swinging that often and makes that much contact, he's going to have 15-ish home runs. And I think that's reasonable. It's not a lot of power, but so much fun to watch him in the batting box. He just does not stand still. So yeah, I like Wilson. I like him as a middle infielder more than a starting shortstop, though.
Exactly right. If he was my shortstop one, I'd be looking to upgrade in either sooner or later. Anybody else in this group?
No, I think we've.
Yeah, heavy prospect. And I'll just read 20 to 30, 21 to 30 for the listeners. We have Colson Montgomery. And if you haven't noticed, take a look at what he did last year. Dansby Swanson, Bryce Rayner, Perdomo comes in at 24, Colt Emerson at 25, Aiden Miller, Trevor Story, Ezekiel Tovar, Mason Wynn, Xavier Edwards. And I think that's where we get into that next level of current major leaguers that are in there. They've been surpassed in the rankings by our top prospects. Good names there. I don't think anybody no names there that I would say you absolutely avoid. I think Swanson always surprises me by having, one more decent year. So I don't know how many years that's going to continue, but no hard avoids for me in this list. How about for you?
No, I expect Tovar to have a better year. He wasn't healthy all season. Yeah. So if anyone's going to jump, in my opinion, out of this group, non-prospect wise, it's probably Tovar.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And like I said, as I was reading through the list, I think Colson Montgomery is somebody else. I think see moving up before he moves down on that list. He found power that he just was not showing in the minor leagues. But it looked real, both, watching him on television and looking at the stats, hearing the cold hard numbers in the offseason. It looks like a real shift in his game, and hopefully it's sustainable. Right. I think that about wraps us up. Anybody else you want to talk about, or any last thoughts on the shortstop position?
Not particularly. As we drop further down, we get more and more into prospects who we've talked about. I think we're in a good spot here. I think we hopefully helped out our listeners.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks for braving the weather and getting over to the recording studio.
That was tough.
And as always, been great talking to you.
Of course.
All right. And to our listeners out there, stay safe, stay warm. And I know how valuable your time is. Thank you again for spending so much of it with us. Take care, everybody.
Join the Ranks is produced and edited by Drew Klein. Content research by Chris Knock and Drew Klein. Intro and outro voiceovers provided by Colson Probst. Unless otherwise noted, the host's rankings and opinions are their own. And, as is painfully obvious, Chris and Drew still refuse to share their player lists prior to recording.